I'm gonna turn my volume off. Oh, I know.
I'm
I was
reasonably
just
certain
looking
it's
at this
Thursday.
presentation and I'm like, edited it on Tuesday. When was Tuesday?
Yeah.
I'm not sure anymore. Yes.
Dottie coming?
So,
Said she was just.
Oh,
good morning, everyone. We're gonna get started in 5 minutes.
Thanks, Ryan.
Crowd here.
hi. How are you?
I am better than average most days.
Good
Good to see you.
to see you too.
Hey, Jessica.
Yeah, talked him back into the situation. So they figured that a guy was on fire.
Morning, Ryan.
I don't have to worry about.
Morning,
that or
Amy.
anything.
Okay, okay, cool.
Morning, Ryan.
Hey, good morning, Representative Bodak. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We're
Great.
gonna get started in just a minute here.
Okay.
Just trying to get our video in our meeting room set up.
Okay.
That's the goal in life, right?
Yeah.
While we're getting that started, I guess we can call the meeting to order and start with a roll call here. I'll start with you, Representative Bonak.
Yes. Carl Bonak, State Representative of the 109th District.
Thank you, and glad to have you.
Thank you.
Ed Legault.
Hi, I'm Ed Legault. I'm the Executive Director for the Delta County Economic Development Alliance.
Thanks. Renee.
Hi, Renee Barron, Community Development Director, City of Gladstone.
Thank you. Amy Berglund.
Good morning, everyone. Amy Berglund, Director of Business Initiatives with Invest UP.
Thank you. Amy Kratz.
Good morning, Amy Kratz, Talent Development Liaison with the State of Michigan for the UP.
Thanks, Amy. Antonio Don.
Good morning, everyone. Antonio Don, Executive Director of the Marquette County Land Bank.
Thanks, glad to have you. Next is Cameron Parker.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Cameron Parker. I'm a business relations consultant with the state of Michigan, MRS Services.
Thank you. And I understand you have something to share with us before you go. You have to leave early.
Yeah, I can really quick if you want. I think you have the brochure, and I've met with a few of the faces here on the screen already with Ed and some others, Amy. So yeah, just real quickly, as a business relations consultant with MRS, I can help businesses and organizations when it comes to recruitment, job retention. We can also work with them to help look at the nature of the tasks that their employees are doing and do task analysis, job restructuring, that kind of thing. And we can also work with the employer to set up a process for accommodations and adhering to the ADA, and working with them and the employee to do some consulting on setting up those accommodations, assistive technology, that kind of a thing. So that's a really quick, brief overview. I'd love the chance to talk to any of you individually longer, or at some point later on, if I get a chance, I can go into more depth. Thank you, Ryan.
Great. Thank you, Cameron. And I'll be sure to share the flyer when I send out our post-meeting email.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Grant.
Hi, I'm Grant. I'm the Finance Director for the City of Ishpeming. I'm here on behalf of Randy Schultz, our City Manager, who was double booked today. So,
Great. Glad to have you. Julie Carla.
Good morning, Julie Carla with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Great. Thank you. Kathleen.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Henry with the Superior Watershed Partnership.
Hi, Kathleen. Thank you. Lee.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Lee Shurry with the U.S. Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration. I am the state rep for Michigan.
Great. Thank you. I see Michigan Office of Rural Prosperity. Is that Charlie?
That is, yep. Thanks, Ryan. Hey, everyone. Charlie Loper. Sorry, I'm with the State of Michigan Office of Rural Prosperity. I accidentally logged in with our team account, so you're stuck with Michigan Office of Rural Prosperity instead of my name.
Can you all hear me all right?
Yep, we can hear you.
Now I can, yes.
Ryan.
Nate.
Good morning, Nate Heffron, City Manager, City Nagani.
All right. Well, we got our audio and video in our room correctly now, so so can we turn on video on? Do we have the video for the meeting room? Yeah. Oh, okay. And last but not least, Victoria.
Good morning, Victoria George, Executive Director for Schoolcraft Tourism and Commerce and Schoolcraft County's EDC.
Thank you, Victoria. And then we'll go around the room here, starting with Emily.
Emily Susie, Community Planner with QPAD.
Great. I'm Ryan Susie, Senior Planner with QPAD.
Jessica Walter, also with QPAD.
Ryan Carrot with QPAD.
Patty LaJoy with QPAD.
Deanna Johnson, Marquette County Habitat for Humanity, Executive Director.
Morning, everybody. Emily Leach, Senior Planner with Marquette County.
Rod Desjardins, and today, the City of Munising.
And Giroux with Invest UP.
Nicki Basch with the Great Lakes Housing Services.
I'm Alex Kosky, I'm the Executive Director of Accelerate EP. Co-written Fish Systems.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today and getting through our lengthy introductions. And so our first item that we have on the agenda is a presentation by Ann Giroux. Ann has a new position after being the finance director at Marquette County. She moved over to Invest UP and has become the new director of development and investment services. And they added an exciting new program called Scale Up, and Ann's gonna tell us about that. So I'm gonna stop my share on my screen and pass it over to Ann. And then hopefully she can get connected here and share her presentation.
You want me to use the sound on my computer or just?
Nope, this will capture the sound.
Are you seeing or seeing? Slideshow start. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I saw a lot of names and faces that I recognize, which is slightly terrifying. Because you're all experts in this housing space, which is a lot of what I'll be talking about today. So I will never claim to know more than any of you about this crazy world of housing and development. But I guess the overall message and the great news is that Invest UP through Build UP has chosen to invest in some capacity, and that's via my position. Because I think we can all agree that this housing challenge and development challenge in the UP is an all hands on deck kind of a thing. So with that, I know you're all friends of Invest UP and know about Invest UP, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about their vision and mission and values, but there they are. And I'm sure, I guess maybe raise of hands, even though I won't see the people virtually, but who knows a little bit about Build UP and what it is? And anybody know a lot about Build UP? Okay, so Build UP was launched in September of 2023 to address the UP's immediate need for housing and provide the region with long-term sustainable funds to solve future housing challenges. And as I talk to folks around the state of Michigan, people are very envious that we have this fund available to us, right? And I've heard several colleagues say, I want one. And so we're very lucky to have these funds, $15 million to expedite the construction of shovel-ready sites in the UP. There are four kinds of support that Build UP can offer. Cash collateral support. So just by way of an explanation, you have a developer that's working with a local bank, and Build UP can provide cash collateral to effectively reduce that interest rate and fill a gap in a pro forma for that project. Residential infrastructure support is assistance to local units of government and providing low cost, interest bonding scenario for them to be able to put infrastructure in to support housing. Build UP has a pretty cool ISD partnership program going on, and I think the first home hit the market yesterday, so check that one out. Amy can jump in if I'm wrong, but I believe that one's in Houghton. It's a really beautiful home, built by high school students, so very exciting. And then the equity participation program is the last program that was recently added to provide basically a gap in equity to make a project pencil out. And the next slide. Oops.
You're
Is it good now? Okay, sorry, there was a little bit of an echo. So the next slide shows where those funds are at and what projects have been funded. We've got several there in green that are closed and funded and on their way, and 3 that are in the process. And really kind of a whole lot of others that are somewhere in the lines of being dreamed and schemed, I'll say, and moving toward that. But these are really just the ones that are actively at an approval stage of some sort. So roughly half of the funds have been committed to projects. And the second half, roughly $7 million, is available to be put out into housing projects in the UP. So in doing this work and trying to get these funds out across the UP, the folks at Build UP recognize that a lot of our UP communities just really don't have the capacity in-house to assist developers through this process, to line up the various incentives that are often involved in these challenging projects, and really access to all of those tools. And the hope through this position and this capacity that they've added through my position is to provide that support to developers, to communities, to financial institutions, whoever needs to learn more to get these projects underway and get these housing units built. I should add too, not necessarily limited to housing. So if there's a traditional brownfield project and the community maybe hasn't used their brownfield program in 10 years, and they need a little education there at the community level, and that developer needs some guidance to get through that process. Not just limited to housing, although Build UP's focus is on the creation of housing units. So that's definitely going to be a big part of this. So brownfield support, both traditional brownfield and housing development support, and other support that may be needed. I have spent the last almost month now talking to everyone and anyone and everyone that will talk to me to try to find out what communities are looking for out of this role, right? So a lot of this is still being formulated as we reach out to the different communities, still in the process of doing that. It's a you all know, very big region. So trying to reach out to each of the 15 counties and really find out what they want out of this role. So we might add more bullets. We might take some away. We just don't know that yet until we get out there and find out what folks need. So a little bit on brownfield support, and I'm not going to get into the details of tax increment financing. Anyone that wants to talk later about that, I love it. So let's do that. I'll show you a spreadsheet and that'll be fun. So with brownfield support, there's a lot of upfront technical support for developers and local communities just in understanding the tool itself. Tax increment financing can be hard to understand and hard to grasp. And a lot of times I find that I'll meet with a developer sometimes 4 or 5 times before it clicks and they understand how the tool works. So really looking at me helping those developers and those communities. Sorry, my themes, I should have figured out how to shut that up. With kind of like, I have an idea and this is the community I'm looking at. I don't know if they have a brownfield authority, step 1, right? Do they have one? Has it done a project in the last 10 years? Or is it a whole new council commission that really doesn't know anything about brownfield? What do the numbers look like and what types of tools? Do I need to reach out to Nicki at Great Lakes Housing to learn about MSHDA's tools? Do I need to be talking to MEDC? we all know we've got a ton of resources available to us for these projects, but really just trying to be a central person that can kind of hold their hand through that process. So it's assisting developers at that kind of exploration conceptual stage, working with consultants kind of as a go-between to try to help those plans actually get written. And then, of course, educating those local units of government and actually presenting those plans to them. My hope is that with 25 years in local government, that I can speak the language of local government pretty well, and particularly 5 years of that time being responsible for a county budget and knowing how important millage and tax revenue is, and that it's not just a simple thing to give up that tax revenue for a period of time to support development. The hope is that I can kind of speak that language, help those communities understand why these tools are important to use, and be kind of that go-between between the developer and the consultant that might be involved and the community. As I said, educating and presenting those plans to those local units of government, assisting the local unit finance staff with plan implementation and administration. Those poor bean counters get forgotten a lot of the times, and these brownfield plans sound wonderful until it gets to the point of them dealing with tax settlement and trying to figure out who gets paid what and how this all works. So again, my hope is that I'm in a unique position to be able to talk with assessors, tax assessors, and treasurers to try to help them through that process. Assisting developers and communities with applying for state and federal grants as those opportunities, whether they're brownfield sites or not brownfield sites, state programs change very frequently. Understanding and really focusing on what are the programs that are available and trying to line people up with those programs. And then local stakeholder education, including local financial institutions. Nicki and I were just talking this morning about which financial institutions in the UP are familiar with Michigan down payment assistance. And we pulled up Marquette County and there were only 3, I think, listed. So, you know, is there some education that needs to happen here with our local financial institutions? Housing development support. Providing technical assistance to developers and communities in accessing state and federal programs that support housing development. We've got a great resource, and I knew I wouldn't take up the whole 40 minutes that Ryan allotted to me, so I'm glad Nicki is here and can talk about Great Lakes Housing Services. That's a great resource. We're not looking to duplicate efforts. Nicki and I were just talking this morning about how we can complement each other and communicate so that we're helping each other with the different developers that we're working with. But assisting with those programs is something I'll be focusing on. Again, working with those lending institutions so that those lending institutions understand how tax increment financing works, how my neighborhoods programs work, what liens may or may not be required with those programs and whatnot. And then, of course, providing support to county land bank authorities as requested. We've got, I have a map, I think, on one of the next slides that shows which counties in the UP have county land banks. There are varying levels of activities from one county to the next. Of course, Marquette County is doing a ton. Antonio's on the call. He's doing amazing work there. Not all counties are quite as active as Marquette when it comes to their land bank, but really kind of serving as a resource to that county treasurer or whoever's running that land bank if they're looking for that assistance. There's the map. I knew it was coming. So the green is county land bank authorities that have been established. The red is county level brownfield authorities and the blue is municipal authorities. So brownfield authorities can be created at either the city or township level or the county level. One caveat on this map, and I've been talking with the MEDC team, that we need to work on these stars because even though the stars are there, doesn't mean they're active. A lot of them were created maybe 10, 15 years ago and they haven't seen a project since that time. So there's a difference between having the tool available and actually understanding. So as I'm reaching out to the different counties, I'm getting a pretty good feel for which counties we need to maybe provide some of that education and get those brownfield authorities up to speed. So just kind of some project examples. We wanted to give a few just to show like, what does this mean and how does this really look? And so a lot of these are from Marquette.
I'm doing a QPAD.
Marquette County for 25 years.
Zoom right now. And then I'm going to the landfill for the 6 county waste management meeting. Period. I'm gonna pick up the car around noon. And then I think I'll keep it tonight if you don't see any problem with that. So that I can go to the LSCP breakfast.
There's the 3 dots and then there. I was worried with 2 mistakes. This presentation is terrible. Lynn would never say that. Okay, so the first example that we have up there is actually Christina Barron's project, and I'm gonna say you too, Antonio, because I think you have maybe something to do with this project as well, but Cedar Street Real Estate, which is a beautiful conversion project in downtown Manistee, that has created a mixed-use structure and some long-term apartments. And so that was an example of where the developer accessed Build UP for funding, and then also accessed an MEDC, Build My Community grant. So again, we've got 2 tools kind of working together to make a project happen. Some of these, the ones at the bottom of the screen are projects that are in process, in progress. So just to kind of give an example, the CHIP, which is the Chippewa Square Office to Residential Conversion Project in the city of Marquette. This is an example that used a My Neighborhood award in cooperation with the County Land Bank Authority. And the reason that that joint development agreement needed to happen was to access a higher level of My Neighborhood funding. So very, very, cool partnership there to make that project happen. That project also utilized a housing TIF through the city of Marquette's Brownfield Authority, and they are also accessing financing support through Build UP. So again, a lot of complicated things that took months to put together. The one person, I'm gonna call Antonio out because I know he's listening. The capacity was there in Marquette County, not just Antonio, but Sean Hobbins at the city, Sherry Davy with their Brownfield Authority. The capacity was there to assist that developer to get this project to the finish line with all of these different tools. And again, that's the hope through my position, is that that capacity can be replicated in other counties in the UP. Renovare Development is a project we're working on right now in Marquette Township. Again, that's using a My Neighborhood Award and housing TIF. We're still in the process of getting that one to the finish line. It's been many, many months working through that process. And so again, some of these projects take time and a lot of boots on the ground work to get them through. A couple others that are in process, the former Raleigh's Furniture Gallery in the city of Ishpeming. This is one that accessed local funding through the Marquette County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority to get some pre-development, things like asbestos survey, brownfield plan prep covered through those grant funds. It is also seeking a My Neighborhood CDBG allocation, and also we're working on a housing TIF plan for this project. The former hydroponic shop on West Washington in the city of Marquette, again in process. So none of these are done deals yet, but you can just kind of see the layers that need to go into place to make them work. This one utilized a small amount of state land bank blight elimination funds through the County Land Bank Authority. They are applying for an MEDC CRP grant, again seeking housing TIF through the city of Marquette's Brownfield Authority, and also seeking financing assistance through Build UP.
So can I ask questions as we go? And are you, I mean, that's a lot for even in Marquette County where there has been just a lot of capacity, and that's a lot for people to put together. Who's helping them? Are you putting that all together?
Well, so in Marquette County, yeah, good point. There are multiple people assisting with these projects. So for example, we'll look at the hydroponics one just because that's the one I'm looking at. So Antonio has been assisting that from the land bank side and also in his housing specialist role, right? Because it's creating housing units, so supporting it in that way. I am still representing at this point the County Brownfield Authority in Marquette County through a professional services agreement, at least through the end of this year through Invest UP. So from that respect, for the County Brownfield Authority, I still am relatively involved, although this is a city project. So they're really working with Sherry Davy and Sean Robbins from that brownfield component. MEDC CRP, that's between them and Lindsay Clark at MEDC. And then Build UP, of course, is kind of more where I guess at this point on that particular project, I'm getting pulled in. Yeah, so a lot of people, to your point. So yeah, I've said a lot of times we've been really fortunate in Marquette County, particularly having the housing specialist role at the land bank level to provide that capacity to help these projects. The rest of the UP, we do have some EDOs. I mean, we've got folks up in Fulton County doing amazing things, some press that was generated there on a really great project up in Jeff Radcliffe's territory. We've got EDOs doing amazing things, but they're all trying to do other jobs too. And so our hope is really to fill those gaps where those communities need them. And you know, we're gonna walk through the doors that are open for us. So if folks need that assistance, they should call me, they should email me, they should reach out to me, because that's where the attention is gonna be focused, is based on those calls that are coming in.
Yeah.
But you're right, Dottie, it's a big territory and it's a lot, so. Yes. Yeah.
Antonio has his hand raised. Go ahead, Antonio.
Lower the hand. Yeah, so I'm gonna jump in on Ann's presentation here a little bit. Because this was brought up by Dottie, one of the cool things that I think, if I may, Ann, that is happening in our county in Marquette is that Ann and folks in the past and present have convened emerging developers to meet up quarterly. And honestly, I'll be completely honest, a lot of these projects that are on the screen happened over coffee, happened over, conversations in passing, happened as ideas, from napkin to actually getting it realized. And if it wasn't for the emerging developers group that is meeting up, talking to each other now, collaborating, sitting down together and making some of these deals happen, I think that's where a lot of the spark happens. And it just takes a big team to pull it together, right? With Invest, with MEDC, with even the land bank, government agency getting involved. Understanding that the goal is maybe a mixed use redevelopment, housing. It really is a team effort. So that's, I think, part of the catalyst that's driving some of this momentum is that, it really starts from getting organized at the local level and actually making sure that somebody's there to shepherd the conversation along the way and having that capacity. So just wanted to add that too, because a lot of this stuff is really exciting to see. Some of these folks that are involved in these projects are first-time developers, right? Quote unquote, are first-time projects. So we hope that the realization is that they can continue some of these into the future and probably provide additional projects down the line with that support. So thank you.
Good point, Antonio. Antonio really likes his coffee, if you don't know that. So yeah, one of my messages is drink more coffee. But truly, we have talked a little bit. I actually was talking with Jen Tucker about MEDC's interest in replicating the emerging developer work that and meetups that are happening here in Marquette County and other areas of the UP. And I think they're open to that. And I am definitely open to participating in those meetups. I definitely will need local support to bring those people together, because it is the local communities that know, who's talking, who are the people to get around that table to start talking about their projects. So, this is, if you're interested, there is a recent podcast that Invest UP has this series of podcasts, Lead to Succeed, that Steve Arwood narrates or facilitates. And they did one recently, kind of talking about my new role, and also a project example with Kyle Aho, with AV Rentals here in Marquette County. And it's a smaller project. It's 2 duplex of 4 units, but it's a really good example of how the Land Bank Authority assisted that developer to access the My Neighborhood program. And that's resulting in 4 new units in downtown Marquette, which, as anyone who knows Marquette knows, it's really, really hard to get even infill construction done in the city of Marquette. And so it's just kind of an interesting listen if you are so inclined. And that is all that I had.
So how do we get to the podcast?
You can find it on Spotify or whatever podcast,
Okay.
or you can, what I found is maybe the easiest is go to Invest UP's Facebook page and they have shared the link there and you can click on it and get to it there. Yeah.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Ann? Well, I've got one. So since we're thinking about development and redevelopment, I'm wondering about the dark stores issue with taxing and the tax tribunals, and how does that affect TIF development, and is that going to be a potential barrier in the future?
Well, it definitely could be a problem if you adopt a brownfield plan for we'll call it a big box development, for lack of a better word, and 10 years down the road, or maybe it's when the brownfield plan is done, they go to the tax tribunal and request that taxable value be lowered, right? Once their TIF period is ended. Definitely a problem. I have seen some developers in a development and reimbursement agreement putting language in that agreement to try to prevent that from happening. I think that's maybe a legal question. You know, you can't take away somebody's right to appeal their taxable value. So, but I definitely know in talking with our brownfield consultant that there has been some attempt by communities to try to shield that potential for a reduction down the road.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I got a question. And, I know that InvestUP is doing those podcasts, and I see Amy's on here too, so she might be able to answer this question too, and then you. So those are monthly things that Steve and whomever is doing, correct?
I don't know that they're monthly. I don't know if Amy knows the frequency.
Yeah. And go ahead, Amy.
Sorry, they're not really on a regular basis. Just
Okay.
as we're able to schedule guests.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking this question is because things change all the time, right? I mean, that's one thing we know in economic development, but we're at meetings, right? And so we find it out all the time, and trying to disseminate the knowledge to everybody else in our communities is very difficult. Because they gotta, understand, all these different steps and different organizations and grants. Is there any thought to maybe a monthly or bi-monthly podcast or something that talks about, in a nutshell, but they would have to contact whoever their county person is or whoever the regional person is, that says, these are the things that are happening, as far that we could get out there and share. Because like, for example, and Rod knows this too, we just got done going through a brownfield thing with Fisher Rock Cruises right in the city. And people are still so very, very confused, and it doesn't matter if they're, a business owner or not, or just a community member. But just something that could be shared, other than just, I feel like over all these years, I've just been sharing emails or just been sharing information, somebody's gotta read it. But it would be cool to have, a 20-minute thing or 30-minute thing that kind of just talked about stuff in a nutshell that we could share out there, like.
And then it's there forever that you can reshare. Yeah.
Exactly, because you're, like brownfield stuff, right? And it's so hard to explain, but it just like in a nutshell. Yeah, I'm gonna find out more information, And this summer, these are the programs that are out there and these are available, because we get all this stuff all the time. It says, here, this thing is going on in Ishpeming, or this is going on in Hancock or Escanaba. And you're not gonna get your business people typically, everybody to go to this stuff, right? I mean, we might go, but they're not going. So if there's something, and I don't know, Amy, if that's something of any interest to InvestUP or you and Ann or whatever maybe, or whatever group. Right. I don't know, rambling?
No.
No.
Kathy, I think it's something that we could consider and we can bring it up. I know it's a bit of a heavy lift to coordinate all of that and just with the production of it and, you know, putting all that together. But I do agree, and it's something along the lines of what the MEDC does when they do their programmatic kind of webinars, and then they catalog them or list them on their website. But I could see, you know, possibly doing something like that.
Yeah, like every other month, a UP update on, I don't know, developers tools, or I don't know, I'm just, again.
Well, yeah.
And the UP, because UP sometimes has different pockets of money, or different maybe priorities than possibly some other places in the state.
Send us an email, Kathy, with your ideas and kind of maybe a couple of those topics that you really want to hear and some of those maybe projects that you want to keep tabs on. But send us an email, and I think it's something that we can consider.
And housing tip would probably be a good example, right? Because housing tip's not going anywhere. I mean, it's gonna be around for a while. It's kind of the hot tool right now. It's, I think, underutilized in the UP. And a lot of people don't really even understand what tip is and how that works. So just like the basics of tax increment financing and the changes to Act 381 that allowed for, that might be a good.
That might be a good thing, because, you know, I mean, yeah, we can share a link, and I'm not downplaying anybody or anything, but that requires a lot of reading.
Yeah.
And are the people that you're sending it to actually going to be reading all of that stuff that you just done, right? They might listen to a 15-20 minute podcast or something like that, just to kind of get in a nutshell what's going on, but read the stuff, I don't know.
Lexi just shared a link in chat for MEDC's brownfield tax increment financing webinar. All right, does anyone else have any questions?
I have a comment, Ryan,
Yeah.
just for information purposes, I don't have the date, but CEDM, talking about developers, CEDM is putting on a real estate boot camp for developers in Marquette, coming up here sometime this summer, I think.
Yep, it's the week of September 15th. And I actually have a slide on it coming up here.
Sorry.
My presentation. So thank you for that. Great. And so I guess if there are no other questions, that leads into Nicki, if you want to share anything.
Yes, please. If I can share my screen now.
Yep, you got control.
Sure I do. That's why it was there. There we go. Okay, so I'm Nicki Basch with Great Lakes Housing Services. We are a nonprofit here to assist basically emerging developers, local units of government, municipalities, and other nonprofits with their goals to build housing. We're kind of funded by MISHDA. We don't work for MISHDA, but we are aligned with MISHDA, and we're here to really assist with MISHDA products and the complexities of their application process, all of the kind of nuances that go along with things that MISHDA creates and says is to be easier, and it just seems to be more complicated every time they do that. So that's what we're here for, is to assist with that. We are here to provide expert consulting and technical assistance. Basically just looking at, like I just said, just the complexities of the application processes, how identify and eliminate the barriers for that. Services overview, here to offer technical assistance, third-party CDBG and down payment assistance services for the employer funded housing program. And with that, just to answer the question up front, it's so if there's any municipalities, local units of government that don't have the capacity to actually run a CDBG program themselves, we can respond to RFPs to do that actual administration for them, and including assisting with the application process up front. There's just a couple of case studies in here. I'll just go past quickly, but it's just really, we assist those with applying for the Mission My Neighborhood program. We help if they receive feedback from MISHDA, saying that they're not funded, to kind of help go through and maybe get that up to speed so that they can get the funding. Technical assistance in Genesee County, helping with their ecosystem with the United Way. And then the third-party CDBG and the down payment assistance support through the employer assistance. And then also working with tribal properties. That's where my expertise comes. I was with a tribe for 20 years in the housing development. So I'm here to assist any tribal partners, helping them maybe bridge the gap between their local municipalities and the tribes to help start collaborating a little bit more, and seeing what potential there is in partnering. So Ashley McLeod is our executive director. Jeff Campbell is the vice president of consulting services. He works Southeastern Michigan. Liz Smith is consultant for Southwestern Michigan, and then I get the joy of having Northwest Lower, Northeast Lower, and the entire UP. So I just have a little tiny space to cover. Just reaching out to our website, there is a form on there to request services, just to get just a real question, just throw your name in there, it gets to us, and then we can reach out to help collaborate, answer any questions, etc. Follow us on LinkedIn. We do put a lot of information out on there, or just contact our full team directly. It's info@greatlakeshousing.org. We're always happy to assist, answer any questions. We're just so brand new that we really need to hear from everyone in the regions. And like Ann said, there's so many of us here to support each other. We just want to know how we can really help fill those gaps for you.
Great, thank you. And does anybody have any questions for Nicki?
So just touching on the third-party administrator portion of your demonstration here. So do you do that, or do you help facilitate that, or get folks comfortable with the setting that up with a third-party administrator? What
We actually act as the third-party administrator.
Okay, cool.
Yes, we can respond to any RFP. Requesting third-party administration services.
Good. Awesome.
Are there any other questions?
Where are you based out of?
I actually live in Traverse City. Here I am. I could be anywhere anyone needs me, so within that full range of the UP, full range of Northwest and Northeast Lower Michigan. So I actually, Traverse City pretty much is the most southern, or close to the southern way. I think I have Manistee County, so one more county below me, but, yeah, like, if you wanna put me in the corner of that, and then my whole service area goes from there, but.
Antonio, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just have more of a comment. Thank you, Nikki, for the overview with Great Lakes Housing. I think it's a much needed tool up here, as other counties are trying to amplify and build capacity. There's so much opportunity to help and assist with projects that glad to hear that you have the TPA role as well. Carrying that hat, just trying to make sure that projects go smoothly. A lot of what I'm realizing too up here is that other local units of government don't have capacity, don't understand potentially some of these very complex tools, especially with CDBG, getting our hands on that. So definitely we'll be reaching out. I appreciate your time, and just wanted to give you a compliment because we've been asking Mishta and others for this capacity building and pipeline. So, just to trying to get more folks involved, and I'm happy to hear that you are already kind of hit the ground running. So I've heard some really great feedback. So appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Antonio.
Thank you, Nikki. And so I'll be sharing Nikki's and Ann's presentation in the post-meeting email. And I'm gonna get back to my presentation. So, our housing action plan that we created through the RHP, has a strategy item that says mitigate the rent burden for underserved and vulnerable populations by identifying local funding sources, developing targeted financial assistance programs reflecting ALICE budget considerations, and promoting affordable housing initiatives, thereby increasing resources and removing barriers for affordable housing. And we,
The full screen.
yeah, I was just looking at my notes real quick. So, so we haven't done much with that action item. We've been mostly focused on housing development through our work with RHP. And I just wanted to provide some data on the affordable rental housing situation in our region. So I grabbed some data mostly from the US Census Bureau, some of it from Mishta's housing data portal, which draws from the Census Bureau. So here on this chart, it shows that 92,748 units. We have 92,748 housing units in the region. Of that, 73,766 are occupied households. The rest make up seasonal, recreational, or occasional use. That's your seasonal homes, your Airbnbs and VRBOs. They're for rent or for sale properties or other. But those owner occupied units are about 60%. And the renter occupied units are about 20%.
Can I ask you a question before you go any
Yeah.
further? Just because this is also a topic that comes up. How'd you find out how many in each county were Airbnbs?
Well, I didn't find out specifically how many Airbnbs there were. The seasonal, recreational, and occasional use are, they're all grouped together within that.
Where do you pull that from?
I pulled that from a table in the Census Bureau, and I can send you the link to the table.
Because that tells the question so many communities have. We don't have any idea how many Airbnbs we have, how many seasonal places we have, you know what I mean? Everybody's just always guessing all the time. Okay, thanks.
Yep, I can send that to you. And then we have a breakdown by counties. Alger County has a lot more seasonal, recreational and occasional use, households, or not households, but units. Dickinson County has a very large share of owner occupied units, and renter occupied is at 15%. Sorry, I can't see this. I'm guessing this is Delta here. My screen is covered. Oh yeah, there it is. There's 17% rental occupied units in Delta. Marquette, there's 28% rental units of the makeup. That's probably due to the location of NMU. And Schoolcraft County has a much smaller share. They have 9.4% renter occupied units. And then in Menominee County, there's 14.8% renter occupied units. So I also looked at the age of cost burdened renters. So 12% are in that age range of being in college. The green and the blue combined are workforce population, and we're working age population. And then the purple 12% is the senior age population. And then again, it varies by county. In Alger, we see a lot more of the working age population being cost burdened, much fewer of the seniors. And then in Delta, we have a large portion of seniors that are cost burdened.
How do you define cost burden, right?
I'm glad you asked. I actually have it on the next slide.
Did you find that astonishing a little bit? Though I guess I always thought, maybe I'm just, because I live in Marquette and I hear about these crazy rental prices that people are paying. And I just didn't realize that there's actually so many people that are paying less than 30% of their income for rent. I guess I thought everybody was kind of getting gouged when it came to rent.
I think there would be mostly homeowners who are paying less than 30%.
Okay.
They bought their house for a certain time.
Yep.
One thing too, Dottie, that this doesn't reflect, there was actually a whole session at the Building Michigan Communities on what this doesn't capture is like families where the wife would have stayed home with the kids, having to go back to work. So that's considered their whole household income. So you're not seeing people having to take second jobs, because that's all considered their income. So it might seem like they're paying less than 30%, but it's only after they picked up second jobs and their wives go back to work.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, there's a lot that data doesn't tell us.
Yeah, okay, because I'm just like going, really? I mean, I feel like everyone I bump into is just like, yeah, the rent is going up and we have to move and we can't find a place that's affordable and, it just seems to be a common trend, so, okay, cool.
And then we see in Marquette, a large portion of the students are cost burdened. So cost burdened means that they pay 30% or more of their income on housing costs. And then there's another category called severely cost burdened, meaning they pay 50% or more of their income toward their housing costs. So in the region, 42.6% make up the rent burdened, and 21.1% are the severely cost burdened. And then we see, looking at the region as a whole, not surprisingly, the cost burdened population is more positioned at the lower ends of the income spectrum. I noted here that minimum wage is $25,900 per year. And that falls within our third bracket here. So we see, people making, minimum wage or less being, a predominant share of the cost burden population. And then we see in the right-hand, table, the rent burden by county. And I put median rent in there too, just to give you an idea of, what those, rents are. Yeah, kind of, shocking, with Schoolcraft being at 62.1%.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Ryan, so the median rent, is that per person in the house? Or per house? I know, I asked this question before and I forgot,
Median rent is per household.
but the rent is,
But it counts everything from 1 to 5 bedroom houses, so it comes in. Since it's the middle number, it includes, studio apartments or people renting whole houses, and so the number is a little deceptive.
and that, the data's from what year?
This is 2023 data. This is the most recent that we
It
have.
does look low, doesn't it?
Oh, extremely low, like I
Yeah, yeah.
might rent a room in the house for 500 something.
I would be curious, Ryan, to see what AMI is for each of those counties.
Yeah, I don't think I included that. Actually, yes, I have it for a couple counties here. I don't have it for Alger and Schoolcraft. But I have it for the rest of the counties. So looking at, income by, rent burdened households, in Alger County, we see a large portion in this third bar here at the minimum wage, and I would surmise that, it's the service worker population that is, the most struggling here, those making, minimum wage and, yeah. There's a lesser so portion of the very low income in Alger County. In Delta County, it's, starting to spread out a little bit. They're mostly in the lower income brackets. And then here's the median income table. It varies by family size. And so you see the 30 and 50 and 60%. I think 30% and below is considered very low income. 60% and below is considered low income. And then 60% and above are what our My Neighborhood tools are able to impact. All right, so here in this table, I show rental homes by minimum AMI level to afford rent. So in the top table, we see that there are 20.6% of the housing units in Delta County are targeted or priced for individuals of 0 to 30%. And then in the bottom table, we see that 27.7% of renters in Delta County are at the 0 to 30% level. So there's a little bit of a mismatch there. There's more people at the 0 to 30 level than there is available units priced at that level. And likewise, there's a mismatch at the top end of the spectrum too. So we see in the blue and the gray, the 81 to 100 and 100 plus There's only 4.1% of units priced at their level. Yet there is about 27% of the population that of the rental population at that level. So they're having to rent at a lower level, which then pushes out the available people at that level. And then this chart explains that gap a little bit more thoroughly. This is actually has numbers this time instead of percentages. So you can see there's a surplus of homes at above 35,000, surplus at above 50,000, and a surplus of at above 75,000, but above 100,000 and 150,000, we have a dearth, and we also have a shortage of less than 20,000. So I'm not gonna go through all of these tables, but I'll send out this presentation so you can take a peek at it, and if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to try to answer them. And yeah. So I'm hopeful that we can start making some progress on the rent burden population issue. So if you have any ideas about anything we can do, then I'm open to hearing them.
Has somebody done over a time period on that rent burden? I mean, you know, how's it changed in the last 5 to 10 years? I mean.
There might be something in the MISHDA data portal. I didn't look at that.
Where I'm going, I mean, it's like, okay, what is this compared to what it was 10 years ago?
Yeah.
It's just like I was sitting there thinking, you know, how does this, you know, rental, you know, percentage of rental in each county, how has that changed over the last 10, 20 years? But also how is it compared to your demographics too? Right? Because we got older communities, you've got smaller households, right? You have all those other things that factor in stuff, right?
Yeah,
So-
Alger County's case, the conversion into VRBOs.
Right. Yeah.
Which, you know, basically were pivoted in 2015. It would be interesting to see the statistics from that.
It would be, so, you know, I mean, and well, so Alger's so much different, you know, you're gonna have a lot bigger percentage, for example,
Right.
in Autrain than, for example, in the city of Newsom, right? Or in Chatham, or in Rock River, you know. So.
And the data is only as good as, you know, if we have significant enough population to make sure the margin of error isn't wildly great. So the reason I didn't include detailed data on Alger and Schoolcraft were because they have smaller populations, and when you're getting this specific into, you know, income brackets that are looking at specific things, I don't trust the data at that level. I mean,
Cause I mean, in my mind, I'm trying to think too much, I guess, you know, what's the rent burden? Like, for example, Alger County, you know, or say like Marquette, and Schoolcraft's a lot like Alger, right? Population wise, demographic wise, all that type of thing. But you see what the rents are, right, in Alger, which of course are different than what they are in Marquette. I think a lot of people don't ever realize, especially people, I'm not saying people in Marquette like that. People in Marquette, you know, but you guys can get a lot more for rent than we can get in Schoolcraft and Alger, right? So that makes a big difference in a developer's decision, right, too. It's like, hey, by the time I get done with whatever it is I have to do, I'm not gonna do a squat, you know, I'm making $15 a year, you know. Compared to what you can make possibly some, so, you know, I mean, is the rent burden that much different between Marquette, because they're paying so much more than we're paying? I mean, does that thing that you just showed show that?
yeah.
Michigan just breaks that down by county, Ryan, they don't go down to, town township or city level.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But that's a question.
Developers choosing where
No,
to
it does click on.
build
Oh,
housing.
yeah, build housing, oh, yeah, I get that all the time.
Not every table, but
We're
all the way, but
It's like, they do the performance, and they get to the bottom, and they're like, squat, you know, I'm making diddly squat, right? So hopefully, whatever I got downstairs, that commercial space or whatever, is gonna support what I got going upstairs, or the rest of the building, right? So,
It's true, the sprawl hasn't happened out, it's going out like this. You know, with the developer, where they're gonna choose to develop and make their money, it's Marquette, and then it's going to Nagani and. You know, it's just slowly coming.
yeah, well,
I
it
know.
really hasn't come, it, yeah, people don't, yeah, well, 20 years, yeah. I've been.
Ryan, I don't know
Yeah.
if there's a way or where the data was pulled from in the slides. Is it possible to get the income to go up to that 120% on any of those slides? Was that just because a lot of Mishta's tools go up to that income range? I just noticed on a lot of them, it stopped at 100%, just curious.
Even if it doesn't, I can do some simple math to make it be at that level.
Wondered about that. That would be useful just for folks who are in that space.
Yeah, definitely, I can see that.
And then did this only focus on for rent?
It focused on, for
Okay.
rent, yep.
So then, do I remember that, so 62% of the renters in Schoolcraft County are rent burdened, but they also have the least amount of rental units? So, you know, so that's a good to know, you know what I mean, like when we're.
Curious what drives that statistic or the difference between Alger and Schoolcraft, the two counties that are probably the most similar.
Mhm.
That are on both ends of that spectrum, 30% and 62%, that's just huge.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, well, you have more demand for renters, right, in Alger County, you know, because of Picture Rocks and. You know, whereas I don't think, I think your economies are a little bit different. No, I don't, you know,
Not really, they're both one chimney towns, you know, tourist based, forest product based.
yeah.
They're very similar. I can't think of any county in UP that is as similar to Alger as Schoolcraft.
They're about as similar, I mean, they don't have, as far as the economic boost as we do, it's tourism. But a little bit of the difference is though too,
Yeah,
I think the city of Manistee, has anybody heard from the city of Manistee? I think they're pretty strict when it comes to, transient. I think it's like nothing. I mean, not to say that we're real liberal in the city has got, you know, you're pretty much right, Rod, pretty much got a lot of that capped off, you know, but you do have some. The Manistee is a much stricter comes to being able to. So you would think they would have more rentals, right? You know, monthly, I don't know, right? Stricter on that end, I don't know.
AMI would be a factor too, but I don't think it's that dissimilar.
Ryan, on the student side of things, does that factor in? Like if there's a 5-bedroom house that 5 friends are all going in on together and splitting the rent up, does that factor into those calculations, or is it like the whole unit?
This is just the whole units, the households. Yep.
So those 5 friends would be considered a household?
Yep.
Which is so much different than what you get in any other town, right? You don't get in Manistee or in really Delta or any place like that. 5 friends, you know what I mean? College buddies that are getting together and they're paying whatever it is, $1,500 a month or whatever it is for rent. You're not gonna get that, people aren't gonna do that in those other places, right? They're not all get together and they're able to pay big rents. Just 1 or 2 people.
And Ed asked the question at the Delta Hannahville meeting about, if this covers, independent living or assisted living, and I looked up the answer to that. And assisted living is not counted in rentals, but independent living is. And that's due to, the inclusion of, medical care and food and things like that in with their rent.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yep, you're welcome. And I see Lynn mentioned in chat that there's the release of the new Alice report coming out on Tuesday. There's a release event that's happening at Marisa, and I'm excited to take a look at the new data. I'll probably include a link to that in my post-meeting email too.
What day is it, Ryan?
That is Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Yep. All right. If there's no more questions on that, I want to talk about the CEDM boot camp that's coming up. It's the week of the 15th. There's limited spaces for this event. I'm not sure how many there are, but the registration cost is $900 for CEDM members, and I think about $1,400 if you're a non-CEDM member. So it's pretty pricey, but it's a week-long event that you get a lot out of. And so I think it would be really good for people in the housing development space to go to this event. A couple months ago, QPAD submitted a MISHDA Actions grant to try to cover the cost of registration for as many people as we can. And so I applied, I guesstimated about 14 registrations, plus some money for travel and lodging for those people outside of Marquette County. But we have limited dollars and I can't give them out to everybody. So I'm convening a selection committee, and I have an application that I put together. It's a real simple application. It's just name, email address, your entity, what's your role in the housing ecosystem, what challenges or opportunities in your community are you hoping to address through rural housing development? And does your organization currently face barriers to accessing training or professional development opportunities? And please subscribe. So you can access this application at this link, and I'll send out an email after the meeting, making everybody in the RHP and CEDS committees aware of this. But I would ask that you please send this out to your developers in your community as well, because we want to see a good mix of developers, municipal units, and economic developers all at this event. So we can get the most out of it. Does anybody have any questions?
In September,
It is.
September 15th.
Yep, starts September 15th, then runs the whole week.
I went in 2015, and it was incredibly invaluable. It's really hands-on. You take a real project and work on it as a group. You come out of that group experience with an action plan to forward that project. I found it incredibly interesting and incredibly valuable and worth my time.
Okay, thank you for that testimonial. All right. And our last item that we have here, what time is it? Okay, well, maybe we'll put this on for the next meeting. So I'll just speak on it real quick. With our CEDS 2025 update, we have to update our SWOT analysis. This is our SWOT analysis from the 2021 CEDS. We were working on this at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. I think it was all virtually done too. So we did this board on on mural. I'm sorry you can't see much of it because it's so small. But so we have a number of things. It's kind of interesting to look at now because it's sort of a snapshot in time, and some of the things that we were thinking about had to do with COVID-19 pandemic. But I think there are a lot of items on here that are still very relevant. And some that are not, like the Michigan launch site designation. So I wanted you all to kind of take a look at this and let me know, you know, what things are relevant now that we didn't include on this board. And we'll try to update it to include those items. And then, you know, also what items are not relevant anymore. I see Sawyer Telkite underutilized opportunities for growth. Telkite is no longer a player, and the UP Energy Task Force, I'm not sure if they're still meeting anymore, but we have a UP Clean Energy Committee. So things like that. And then I'd like to sort of start pulling priorities out of here. I think, you know, the Sawyer Airport has definitely increased in priority since we last looked at this. Yeah, there are a number of things that we could dive into a little bit more. So I'd ask you to please take a look at this after I send out the email and give me your comments. All right, so on to grant opportunities, the Mishta My Neighborhood program, we're still waiting for our next regional allocation that's coming out on October 1st. The Eagle Home Energy Rebates Program is accepting income verifications. I know a number of people who have applied for it and gotten it, and so that's really cool. The Office of Rural Prosperity, Rural Readiness, round 4, just started accepting letters of intent. I think it was a Tuesday, and that runs through June 30th. I'm not sure if Charlie's still on the line. But that is for collaborative planning and capacity building. So if you have any ideas, you could reach out to Charlie. She offered to be a contact for any questions you might have. And you can click this link to find out the grant guidelines and all the good stuff there. I already mentioned the CEDM Rural Real Estate Boot Camp. That's going to be in Marquette at the Northern Center, I believe. I forgot to mention, they also have a room block available for hotel stays, and so part of our funding can go toward that. There's a governing essentials webinar series hosted by MSU Extension. That's going to be online, and that's happening August 5th, 12th, and 19th. And I think there's a December date as well. Under events, Office of Rural Prosperity is having the Upper Peninsula Rural Futures Summit. The last Rural Futures Summit happened in April. It was downstate, so I'm really pleased that Office of Rural Prosperity is considering the UP and bringing it up here for us if we were not able to make it down there in Lansing for the event. So that event was dedicated to exploring the future of Michigan and preparing for the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. And it was designed to bring together key stakeholders from across the state to engage in meaningful discussions, share insights, and collaborate on solutions that will shape the future of our rural communities. And space is also limited at that. I think this is going to be at the Northern Center as well. That's on July 22nd at the Northern Center. So if you're interested in that, I would say get registered quickly because I think that event is going to fill up. In other news, we hosted the UP Outdoor Summit and it was great. Phil, if you want to say anything about it, go ahead.
Yeah, it was an awesome day, you know, I was over the moon with the people showed up, great conversations, great engagement all day long. As you mentioned there, the industry growth strategy that we worked with TIP Solutions to develop, that is now complete and or mostly complete and available to look at, upoutdoor.org. Probably also a couple other links as well. So yeah, we had a meeting yesterday, kind of talking about what our next steps are. So stay tuned for that as we move forward. It was great.
Yep, thank you, Bill. And it's linked right here if you want to look at the growth strategy, but I encourage you to go to upoutdoor.org and check out that website as well, because there's pictures of the event and
the slideshows from the presenters are there too.
Yep.
There's some really good like industry data from Jonathan and other presenters as well.
And the last item I have here is that there are a couple of land division bills that are in the legislature right now, HB 4081 and SB 23, that have to deal with increasing the amount of land divisions possible on a parcel. So that is a substantial change and I think relevant for our rural townships. So keep your eyes on that. And I think MSU Extension said that they would be developing some training on the new changes in the future if these bills pass.
Those two bills, do you know who are on those? I thought I saw Carl on here. I didn't know if he could speak on it.
He said he had to leave a little bit ago, so I'm not sure who's supporting the bills or anything like that.
Are they on the floor? Like, are they gonna be?
They have HB 4081 has passed the House and SB 23 has passed the Senate, I believe. And that takes us to partner updates. If anybody has anything to share, please raise your hand and yeah.
Hey Ryan, this is Ed. I have just one quick thing or two things. I'm sorry. The Delta County Chamber has its 32nd Golf Classic happening on June 5th. We still have a few spots for teams or individuals if you'd like to play. I put the link for the chamber website in the chat, and you can just go there into the events page and get information on that. And then the Island Resort Championship is taking place at Sweetgrass Golf Course, June 20th through the 22nd. 156 Epson Tour golfers will be competing, and we have roughly 300 volunteer shifts to fill. We have about 175 people that have volunteered so far. Many of them take multiple shifts. It's a fun event to volunteer for. And if you also would want to help out, there's a pro-am on June 18th and June 19th. And if you volunteer during those times, you'll see tremendous amateur golfers like Amy Berglund competing. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ed. All right, are there any other updates anyone wants to share?
On October the 17th, it's a Friday in Marquette, UPEDA, Upper Peninsula Economic Development Alliance, is having an event. And one of our quarterly events, and this was gonna be dealing with healthcare in the UP. And we're gonna be really focusing on, because we had a big conversation about this, the board did not long ago, is of course, population retention has gotten to be such a big thing. And our demographics is people are getting older. And with the, not to say quality of healthcare is not any good in the UP, but it's tough. Specialist programs, things like that people are looking for when they are getting older are not really as much out there, here in UP. There are other places, so, people moving out, because they can't get what they need. And will that continue to happen and be more frequent as time goes on? So, and then of course, different cuts or possibly different cuts, things like that. How are they affecting things, research, things like that. So we're gonna have a big conversation with not only the small critical access hospitals during that day, but bigger, health system, things like that, and some other speakers that are gonna come to talk about, what is the status right now, where is it going, what are we gonna do about it?
When is that?
October the 17th, which is Friday. Don't know yet where, we're kind of juggling, but you'll see stuff out about it.
Is there a registration link yet?
Should be out there pretty soon.
Oh.
There is one, there, UPE.org, or Michigan Works, always sends out a big, thing on it. We'll have something out there, but that probably happens sometime in the month of June.
Okay, thank you. Looking forward to it. Great. If there are none other questions, then, oh, thanks.
My update, Marquette County has a special meeting today at 1. People are welcome to tune in. We're just gonna discuss, the continued search for a county administrator. Whether we're gonna continue with the person we contracted with or do it ourselves or contract out. So if you know people interested, can send their applications, resumes in still.
Great. Thanks, Dana.
Great.
Well, I know Delta County is, they've had a shift in their administrator, moving over to the airport. And they said they've received quite a few applicants.
I know,
Yeah.
I talked with them. Okay. And they've done it themselves. That's my understanding. When I talked to Kelly, they did the search themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, they've got some good ones.
I just think it's so important for counties to have administrators,
And I prefer that, and I made myself very, everyone knows, I prefer that. And I think the rest of us do too, and it just takes time to find someone really that's gonna fill those shoes. As Scott had been with us for a long time, and Ann too, and Ann, I'm so happy for her, because she's following her passion, and she looks so happy all the time. I'm sorry. I know, I can't wait for you to tell her. I do actually.
All right, everyone. We're gonna sign off now. So I hope you all have a good day and bye.
Take care. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
There's maybe some,